Welcome back, beautiful tri-state area. You're listening to A Moment of Zen right here on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio. I'm your host, Zen Sams. Welcome back to the Brain Blueprint segment brought to you by the Melillo Centers and Dr. Robert Melillo. And we're chatting from hopeless to hopeful, breaking barriers in brain health. We're going to explore how one mother refused to accept a dire prognosis, discovered Dr. Robert Melillo's groundbreaking brain balance work, and helped her daughter Emma thrive against all odds. To set the stage, nearly 1 in 6 children in the United States have a developmental disability such as ADHD, autism, or a learning disorder. And that's according to the CDC statistics back in 2023. I'm going to say they're even higher right now. Globally, there's more than 17 million people affected by cerebral palsy and neural development disorders. Collectively, that impacts tens of millions of families. And even more striking, according to the National Institutes of Health, an estimated 80% of children with neurological disorders are told their prognosis is limited and that little progress should be expected. Yet, emerging science paints a much different picture. We know the brain is plastic. It can adapt, it can rewire, and it can change. And when we apply targeted stimulation consistently, breakthroughs become possible. Today's guest is Dr. Robert Melillo. He's a world-renowned expert in brain health, especially childhood and adult neurological disorders. He's a clinician, a professor, brain researcher, and best-selling author of Disconnected Kids. Dr. Melillo focuses on ADHD, autism, OCD, tics, anxiety, and other developmental neurological issues. A leading figure in functional neuroscience, he has dedicated his entire career to bridging the gap between brain function, behavior, and physical health. His innovative multimodal approach, the Melillo Method, has transformed the lives of thousands of patients of all ages. Now, joining us alongside Dr. Robert Melillo is Cindy Bloxham. She's a remarkable mother who has spent the last 7.5 years rehabilitating her daughter, Emma, who was born with a severe brain disorder. And after being told in New Zealand that Emma's case was too severe to improve, Cindy, she just refused to give up hope. Her journey led her to Dr. Robert Melillo and his method. And today, Emma is thriving, a beautiful, joyful, cheeky 9-year-old who proves the brain's blueprint can indeed be rewritten. Welcome to the show, superstars.
Yay. Thanks for having us.
So happy to be here again, of course.
So, Cindy, you were told Emma's condition was too severe for improvement.
Yep.
So what gave you the strength to challenge that prognosis and search for answers outside the traditional system?
I recall being in this pediatrician's office, and all she did was focus on what was wrong with Emma. And I'm like, oh, okay, so what are we going to do to help her? And she couldn't answer that question. And I asked her, I said, could you do me a favor? Could you tell me, when did you get your degree? And she looked at me complexed, and I said, yeah, when did you get your degree? And she said, 20 years ago. And I said, okay, and do you know how long ago those books you based your thesis on were written? And she looked at me, she said, how must I know? That's in England, could be 80 to 100 years ago. And I said, exactly. I said, you don't know me, and you don't know my child, and you don't know the God I serve. So you can take your somewhat diagnosis and you can stick it. Because I am going to go and find my child the right help, and one day I'll pop in here and my daughter will walk in here. And she just looked at me and I said, well, thank you. Got up, picked my child, and I walked out. And just like many other mothers and yourself, like you explained earlier, Zen, you research. You go and find the answers. And after trying a couple of therapists in the beginning, I soon found out this is not what my daughter needed. Nobody's actually explaining what's going on with Emma's brain, because that's where the issue is, right? And I remember I bought a vibration tool of someone, and when I bought it, the person included Dr. Melillo's book. And I'll never forget, I had the book for like over 6 weeks, and I didn't get into it yet. And she kept pestering me, have you read the book? Have you read the book? And it was a Sunday evening. I started reading the book. I went to bed at 11, and I couldn't shut off. I was like, I need to get up. And I got up, and I had to finish this book that night. I read it in one go. I found our person. And that led me to New York, all the way from New Zealand. And it's been 4 years working with him and never looking back.
Wow, that's such a powerful example of advocacy, and the research supports it, right?
Yeah.
Because a study, and it's serendipitous. There are no coincidences. You were meant to meet,
Oh, it was
and
written in the stars.
it was written in the
Definitely.
stars. And
Yep.
and studies show that children whose parents remain actively involved, and you are Emma's therapist,
Yep.
in seeking alternative or even complementary therapies, have up to a 40% greater chance of functional improvement compared to those who don't. So your instinct to ask what's possible if we try is exactly what opened the door for Emma's transformation, right?
100%.
Dr. Melillo, you are at the center of this conversation. What are you thinking right now,
Well,
hearing
I
all
think,
this?
when people out there that they may be listening and saying, wait a second, how come they don't know what's going on? What was really fascinating was, there was no obvious signs of anything with Emma. They did MRIs of her brain and brain was perfect. The doctor said it was one of the best brains he ever saw. Genetic testing, everything
Lumbar
came up
punctures.
negative. Blood tests, everything came up negative. But here was a girl who was profoundly impaired. Like she said, she could only really barely move one side of her body. And, and she was, literally when I first saw her, could only crawl on the ground, like dragging her legs behind her like they were dead, meaning that this was this little girl. This is the only way she could ambulate. She couldn't sit up, she couldn't speak, and nobody knew why. And this was the whole idea of, when you talk about a functional neurology or functional neuroscience, what does that mean? This is the best example of it, because there's obviously something going on that's profound in the brain, but yet there's no organic illness, there's no
Right.
injury, there's no genetic mutation, there's nothing really that you can see wrong with the brain, and that makes it really challenging. And that's been my focus, and that's when we look at kids with autism that are severely profoundly impaired, but yet there's nothing wrong with their brain, there's no genetic mutation. And this is the mystery of it, and there's very few people that really understand how the brain works from a functional perspective and can change that. And that's been my mission.
Yeah. So, Cindy, on your fourth trip to see Dr. Melillo, what specific kinds of progress have you witnessed in Emma since those early days?
My very first trip, I got back home and I had a pediatrician appointment, and Emma's head grew 6 centimeters. She had something, what's the term, Dr. Melillo, when a child's head's really small?
Microcephaly.
Yep, she had that. So her brain stopped growing very early on, and there hadn't been change in years. And the fact that her head had grown 6 centimeters at our very first intensive, that's scientific proof in real time her brain was growing. And then fast forward to now, we in our second week of this intensive, she's doing stuff she couldn't do last Monday. Dr. Ty's got her pulling herself up from a seated to standing position. Keep in mind, she probably doesn't even feel the bottom of her legs. And yesterday she was showing off to Dr. Rob, like, hey, look at me. She's doing a minute plank. She's doing sit-ups. She always needed assistance with sit-ups, so holding the hands. She's doing it no hands. She's doing Supermans over Bosu ball, throwing a ball. And what we're trying to do is encourage lifting this bit, because the back muscles, because Dr. Melillo says, look at it like this. How do you expect Emma to walk if her brain can't even feel her back muscles, right? So we're stimulating those muscles. She's doing the NeuroSage program, which is the brain stimulation program. And she's got, at the moment, for the first time, we switched from left to right, because her left brain had healed so much in the last 3 years working with Dr. Rob, and her numbers were so bad when we first started. Now it's time to integrate her whole brain. We're doing bridges, and she does it for 150 seconds. Most kids can't even do 40 seconds.
Right.
She's her vestibular. Dr. Melillo took me through her program and her progress and how her chart is moving in the right direction, some better than others, and then some she's nailing. But collectively, we have progress.
And I think what's really important is the first thing she said. When we look at our research and we say, what is the actual problem? One of the problems is that there's immaturity of the brain. The brain is being held back in its growth, and it's partly related to these things called retained reflexes. And so I always say to parents, what are we trying to do? Ultimately, what we're trying to do is literally get your child's brain to catch up to where they should be and catch up to the other area, other networks. Emma's left side of her brain was even more delayed than the right. Her whole brain was delayed, and her head was small, very small for its age, and they looked at it like, well, it's never going to change. That's never going to change. And so we're literally trying to get it to grow at an accelerated rate.
Right.
A lot of people say it's impossible. When the skull and the head grow 6 centimeters in a matter of a couple of weeks from where they were, that means we're getting the brain underneath to grow at an accelerated, faster than normal rate, and try to create balance in the brain and in the networks in the brain, really, which is the root cause, because we're always trying to get to the root cause.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what you're saying is really extraordinary. Let's move on. So, Cindy, you've been open about Emma's journey on social media.
Yep.
You have a profile set up, Emma Bum's Journey, Emma Bum's Journey. Why was it important for you to share publicly, and what kind of response have you received from other families?
The biggest thing Emma's taught me so far is be glass half full. Look at her. She's got a complex list of what is not going well for her, but she's the happiest little child you ever going to meet. So that's how I live my life. And I want to share a positive outlook. And I want parents to go, actually, look, put the hard work in, gain the benefits.
Right.
There's no easy road. I remember when I first met Dr. Rob, he says, a lot of people always say to me, when is my child going to talk? When is my child going to walk? And he goes, how long is a piece of string? If I had that answer, I'd give it to you. But it all depends on the amount of work you're going to put in back home. And if you look at me, I'm 7.5 years in. And if he told me when he first met me, it could be 10 years, I'd be like, how? That's a big commitment. But I see why now. And I look at her, and she is a picture of health. We discovered last year in Dr. Melillo's office, Emma can fully read, even though traditional doctors said my child's brain disorder is so severe and her global developmental delay is so severe that she was stuck as a newborn, and that's going to be her for the rest of her life. And in actual fact, she's probably smarter than us. There's so much more to them. And this is going back to my page. I want us to stop focusing on what's wrong with them. Our kids are not broken. We're not here to fix them. We're here to help them on their journey, equip them to get them to the best of their ability, and tap into your kids' gifts. These kids are amazing.
Like what she's describing, many of the kids that I work with that are non-speaking, they're brilliant. They're geniuses, literally. But that's also what makes them vulnerable. And very few people understand that. All these kids, many of them have been told they're intellectually impaired, basically insinuating that, they're not that smart, or, there's really, they're not as intelligent as they could be. And it's actually couldn't be further from the truth. Just because they can't speak, or because they may not be able to point or type or write, they know everything.
Right. And they hear everything.
And they hear
100%.
everything.
And it's so important that the narrative around them is positive.
Yep.
Because if you're talking about them like they're a third person in the room and referring to them as the third person, right, and not addressing them as a human being in presence, they'll hear that.
Yes.
100%.
What you're saying about them. And imagine a child who can't talk back, and mom or dad just refer to them as lesser than perfect, right? Imagine that. But what you've done, Cindy, is you put Emma's Journey out there, and you created more than awareness. You've created a ripple effect. And the statistics show that parents who connect to peer support networks online report 50% lower levels of stress and isolation compared to those who don't. So what you've done is not only helping Emma, but you've built a lifeline for others, and even yourself, because you are doing a lot of work, Mama, a lot of work. God bless you. And to Dr. Melillo's point, you're on a journey, and a journey that is just beginning.
It is. I feel so blessed sometimes. I go, how come God chose me? I'm just like nobody. I'm an average mum. And just to touch on, like, Emma communicates to me through dreams. And I remember once I asked her this, and she said to me, because I knew you were strong enough, Mum, and I chose you because I knew you'd stick by me and you'd believe in me. And Emma almost died when she was 5 months old. And I'll never forget rushing her to hospital as she was shutting down, and I couldn't wake up, and she was turning blue. And I promised her, I made a pinky sweet promise with her. She had rhinovirus, bronchiolitis, and influenza, and her immune system, she was just shutting down. And I said to her, if you come back from this, I promise you I will leave no stone unturned, and it will be me and you. We'll do whatever it takes. And all I'm really doing is just keeping my word.
You're going to make me cry.
Yeah.
You really are. Okay, so for parents listening who may not be familiar with the science, you literally made me cry. Could you describe some of the exercises or therapies Emma does as part of the program and how you've seen those directly connect to changes in her brain and behavior?
So when you first start with Dr. Melillo, he's big on primitive reflexes. Primitive reflex is something that newborns are born with, and as a child grows, the reflex integrates, which just goes away. And for these kids, it's not going away. So how do you expect your brain to mature and develop when those reflexes there and it's still saying, hey, actually, I'm still a newborn baby, but you too, right? So there's not going to be growth. There's not going to be development. And one of the first things Dr. Melillo said to me is, does she move? And I said, no, she doesn't move at all. And he said, so how do you expect her brain to grow if she's not moving? And I think a lot of people don't know this. In order for your brain to grow and develop and mature, the body needs to physically move. So we focus on the primitive reflexes by integrating them. And that's Palmer reflex, Babinski, ATNR, SDNR, I could list all of them. And there's certain exercises Dr. Melillo teaches us. And then we work on core strength. And a lot of people are like, so why does Emma do 100 sit-ups? I'm like, it's not about having abs of steel. It's about strengthening her cerebellum. That's where stability comes in. Feeling yourself in gravity, proprioception. And how do you expect her to walk when she can't even feel herself in gravity, right?
When she was going through therapy in New Zealand, they were doing things where there was this thing called a neurosuit, and they were literally strapping her in and trying to get her to stand. This is a little girl who couldn't sit, who had never crawled, and she couldn't even do a basic bridge on the floor. And so, they were doing all this, and I said to Cindy right from the beginning, the first thing we have to do is we have to get her to build some core stability. We have to get her stable on the ground, and we have to be able to get her to sit up. That's our first goal, just to get this little girl to sit up and to be able to use her legs. And, and there was nothing wrong with her legs. They just wouldn't work. They wouldn't move. They looked like a baby's legs. And that just started with just repetition of getting her to do a simple bridge just to engage that. Yeah. And within a short period of time, Cindy was like, oh, my God, everything is changing right now because of that. But meanwhile, they were trying to rush her to try to get her to stand up and try to walk when she couldn't even sit.
I remember that conversation. Your first thing you said is, why are they trying to get her upright?
Right.
Why is she upright? She needs to be on the floor. She needs to be on the floor. And he's like, you get her on the floor. And I'm like, okay, cool. So we do sit-ups, we do wheelbarrows, we do planks, we do Supermans. And the cool thing about Dr. Melillo's program is a lot of it, we make it fun. Right? Yeah. We make it fun because they are kids, but also fun for the parents as well because it's hard work. Gosh, people always say to me, do I do a lot of arm workout? I'm like, no, this kid's heavy, man. Yeah. She's my workout.
Yeah. She's gotten a lot heavier.
She's solid.
She was like nothing when she came.
Yeah, she's solid. She's pure muscle. She's like lead. And Dr. Tai always says she has a swimmer's back, this kid. She is so strong.
Yes.
So we the physicality part she loves. She knows this is where I can show up. And even just being back here now, yesterday when we were in our session, one of the other assistants, when he saw Emma, last year Emma had him like literally dripping in sweat. I had to dry his face because his eyeballs were burning because she was putting him through his paces. And then he had to step in yesterday and he went, oh my gosh, Cindy, she is doing so much of this herself. He was like, wow, look how strong she is now. And the team make it fun and exciting. And then we moved to the brain stimulation part. Now, yes, Emma does struggle with this, not because she doesn't like it. It's tough. You're trying to wake her body up. We're stimulating her neurons so she feels her body in gravity. She's upright in a vibration machine. She's got flashing glasses on. Dr. Melillo's team use the lasers, so infrared laser, and there's so much great research on infrared lasers and how great they are for the mitochondria cells using photobiomodulation. And we use a program which the kids are watching to stimulate the particular side of the brain, and I think collectively she has like 10 to 12 products on her, literally waking her body up. And on this journey, the more the kids feel their body, the more they're going to use their body.
Yeah.
Because, and we're seeing that.
It's very basic logic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not rocket science. And that's what I love about Dr. Melillo's program. It's like,
it's a clear picture. Because
hey,
neuroscience tells us that repetitive, task-specific training increases synaptic strength, and it drives that long-term
100%.
plasticity. So you've translated that into real-life gains for Emma.
Yeah.
It's the science is the science, and it's inspiring to see the science and story align so closely, and that's because of course, the incredible Dr. Robert Melillo. Cindy, I mean, this has been an incredible interview. Dr. Melillo, I've learned so much. You are inspiring. Emma is inspiring, and many families don't realize that issues like anxiety and ADHD or developmental delays not often, I mean, they trace back to imbalances between the brain's hemispheres, like Dr. Melillo has always been saying. So understanding this science, without a doubt, is helping you better support Emma's day-to-day.
100%. And it just makes, I look at her, like, I've got 2 other children. She's exactly the same. I remember the first time meeting Dr. Melillo, when we came to New York, he looked at me and I'll never forget, he said, with a child with so many complex things against her, you've raised her in such a positive, but she's so confident. Right? And I said, yeah, because we focus on what's right with her. And she owns that. So she only knows she's amazing. She only knows she's kick-ass. She only knows I show up for myself and I'm going to prove these doctors wrong. And I got this. I got me. And that's how she is. She walks into a room and she owns it. And why not?
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, we are at the end of our date, my friends. What an extraordinary and deeply educational conversation. I mean, Cindy, thank you for sharing
Emma's having me.
Inspiring journey and giving hope to so many parents. And of course, Dr. Melillo, thank you for your groundbreaking work in showing us that the brain's blueprint is not fixed, it can be rewritten.
Yep.
And then that's the biggest takeaway for me. So thank you so much. And for those of you listening, you can follow Emma's story directly on the gram at Emma Bum's Journey. You can connect with Cindy personally on her profile page on the gram at Blocky78. And to learn more about Dr. Robert Melillo and his work, you can head directly to his website at drrobertmelillo.com. This has been our Brain Blueprint segment in the Expert on the Microphone series right here on A Moment of Zen. Stay tuned. We'll be right back after this on 710 WOR, the voice of New York, iHeartRadio.